Your Welcome is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Now, most of you listening right now are probably multitasking. Yep, while you're listening to me talk, you're probably also driving, cleaning, exercising, maybe even grocery shopping. But if you're not in some kind of moving vehicle, there's something else you could be doing right now, which is getting an auto quote from Progressive Insurance. It's easy. You can save money by doing it right from your phone. Drivers who save by switching to Progressive save over $700 on average, and auto customers qualify for an average of 7 discounts. Discounts for having multiple vehicles in your policy, being a homeowner, and more. So just like your favorite podcast, Progressive will be with you 24/7, 365 days a year, so you're protected no matter what. Multitask right now. Quote your car insurance at progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. For his casual insurance company affiliates, national annual average insurance savings by new customers surveyed who saved with Progressive between June 2020 and May 2021. Potential savings will vary. Discounts not available in all states and situations. Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us a guest that I've been trying to get for years. I'm absolutely ecstatic to welcome someone who needs no introduction. You might know her as the Human Uzi. You might know her as America's Sweetheart. She's the author of over a dozen books, millions of copies sold. Her new Substack is anncoulter.substack.com. Ladies and gentlemen, that was weird. I'm sorry, English is my second language. Please welcome Ann Coulter to the show.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here, Michael.
Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm going to ask you a little something that you're probably not going to ask before. You're used to extremely hostile interviews in TV, internet, on stage. Are you uncomfortable with an interview where someone's complimentary and flattering? Do you not know what to do?
Yes, this has totally thrown me off. I don't know how to respond. This friendliness, I don't know, Michael.
It's the truth. Do you regard yourself as a troll? And by troll, I mean someone who intentionally says things in a provocative way in order to solicit an emotional response from others.
On that definition, sure. I mean, I think all writers and talkers do. I mean, Shakespeare does. We're eliciting an emotional reaction. I will say, people don't believe this, but I've tested it on about, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 books. People would always say I'd come out with a book and there would be one particular line that the media would go crazy over. It's, oh, you slipped that in just because you knew we'd be upset about this joke. And you just put it in so to gin us up. And my friends all knew, my editors knew, because they've edited the book. My editors edited the book. My friends have read the book. We never had any idea what liberals would flip out over. I mean, there are a lot of jokes on every page, or lines that at least amuse me, maybe not kind of a setup joke. And so after this happened several times, I started specifically giving it to my friends and saying, okay, you guess what's going to upset them. And nobody ever could.
Yeah, I do that too. I had a line in my book, The New Right, where I said after 1974 that Dick Nixon's taint haunted the White House, and no one picked up on that reference at all. So it's very often counterintuitive what sticks out and what doesn't stick out. I'm thinking specifically of an interview you did with Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks. You guys were both on stage at some conference. And it was really, one of the best examples I've ever seen of mansplaining, because you would give your answer to a question, and then he immediately said, as if you don't speak English, well, what Ann is really saying, and you're like, I'm right here. I speak for myself. I get paid good money to do it. Can you walk me through what your thought process is when you're in a situation like that?
Well, what was funny about it is I've noticed this from watching my favorite network, MSNBC. Actually, it's really boring now. Even I can't watch it. Their most loyal viewer. It's this thing the left does where they can't attack what you've actually said. So it's in other words, no, not in other words. I just said the words. No, I know you wish I'd phrased it differently, because then you'd have something to attack. It's exactly like, and many people have pointed this out now, PolitiFact's fact checks. I generally don't read them, but it's always, we rank this false, and they'll look at what you said and say, well, yeah, the way she phrased it, it's true. But if she had said, or on the other hand, to give this context, well, that's why I didn't say it that way. What I said was true. I think we can leave it at that.
There was my favorite PolitiFact was when Trump said something to the effect that Hillary Clinton scrubbed her servers with bleach, and they rated it as false because they said, no, she just deleted all the files and used the hammer on the hard drives. And it's like, well, I don't think the bleach really is the germane part of this accusation.
Yes, it's like the joke about the priests who are accused of killing three young boys and a dog, and they produced the dog.
Right. Are you, one of the things you had discussed, I saw you give a talk a few years ago, is that your hope of America surviving was a fairly small number. With the election of President Trump, you had that number go significantly higher. You very famously have lost your taste for the President Trump as president, to put it mildly, the quote being literal retard. Can you tell me about your relationship with Trump? Because Adios America, your book, which I read, which a lot of people have read, of course, very much framed his candidacy by his own admission. How do you think Trump the candidate differed from Trump the president?
Night and day. I mean, it was, I would still write, and during the campaign, I wrote the book In Trump We Trust, which I do still think everyone makes fun of me now since I hate him, and obviously he isn't trustworthy, but I sort of thought it was, well, for one thing, as you know, you got to come up with the title. If you don't like the titles, give me a better title for that. But I mean, it was semi-ironic at the time, because if you read the book In Trump We Trust, I basically say he's an awful person, but he's finally saying the stuff we've been waiting for some candidate to say. If you establishment Republicans, oh, he's such a vulgarian, he's an Aravist. Yeah, okay, I know that. I grew up in Connecticut, outside of New York. I am well familiar with Donald Trump. Didn't learn anything new from all of these attacks on him. I know he's a vulgarian. But how about running an elegant politician who says he's going to build a wall? How about one of these elegant, well-spoken guys? But they wouldn't give us that. So I would still write the book. I think it's the most magnificent campaign in history. I've even given it to some politicians that I'd like to run for president, some Republicans. I'd like to run for president, inscribing it to them. Fantastic campaign, but actually do it when you become president. The campaign was pretty perfect. And then, I mean, it started to fall apart right around the time he got the nomination. When he fired Corey Lewandowski, there were forebodings. We were all getting a little bit nervous, and suddenly he fires Corey Lewandowski. He had won the nomination with himself, Corey Lewandowski, and Hope Hicks. He didn't have like a team of pollsters and campaign consultants. But then as soon as he gets it, he fires the guy who got him there and brings in his kids. I mean, at Jared Kushner's bidding, he brings in the kids. The transition started to look pretty bad, and my columns during the transition, I was still talking to him then. And so I was gentle in the columns and I was gentle on the telephone. But we who supported his campaign platform were already going crazy. And I was warning what was going to happen and how we'd have to hire the people who would know how to push this through, how the first George Bush, made the promise, no new taxes. And then he raised taxes and New York Times sneers at him. Then he, of course, loses his election. You can't make a promise like that. And George Bush said at one time at the Republican National Convention, with Trump, it was every rally. It was, on T-shirts. It was the chant people came up with. Build the wall was the signature of his campaign. I sort of think without the Black Lives Matter riots, he wouldn't have gotten any votes in 2020. Well, I guess the neocons and people who want the tax cuts, the usual GOP stuff, would have voted for him. But it was just a complete disaster from the beginning, the campaign.
And
What
I would
happened?
add the other lesson in the first George Bush was it's not just that he broke his word on taxes. The promise was tax hikes now and then spending cuts later. And the Democrats like, oh yeah, Mr. President. Oh yeah, we're definitely going to cut this deficit in half. And if that had happened, he could make the argument, look, I raised taxes, but look what I got in return, fiscal conservatism. So he gave up everything and got nothing in return. So this kind of idea that Republicans can sit and cut a deal with the Democrats, this kind of Ronald Reagan, Tip O'Neill fantasy, I think is long gone.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. And we get that or have gotten it for, 40 years on the border, going back to Ronald Reagan. Yeah, he granted what was supposed to be a couple million illegal immigrants amnesty. And in return, there was going to be aggressive employer enforcement so that if illegal aliens can't be hired, well, they're not going to come. There was going to be not a wall. We didn't know how bad it was going to get. But that is a big disappointment of the Reagan era. But we're always promised, oh, just give us this amnesty and then we'll secure the border. If they say anything other than a fence or a wall, they're not securing the border.
One of the things that I think you really blew your top the most was how Trump treated Jeff Sessions and the consequences as a result of that. Because, I argue with conservatives a lot on Twitter who make the case that Trump has learned his lesson and he's going to staff better people next time. I've seen no examples of Donald Trump learning anything, but that's neither here nor there. My point is, why would someone who has stature work for this man when after a year they're going to be fired or quit, and then he will do everything in his power to humiliate them, call them horrible names, and not only that, will work to make sure they can't go back where they started. As you point out, I remember the time after Sessions left, he endorsed Sessions' Democrat opponent in the primaries, and you had a Democrat senator from Alabama, which I think was the reddest state.
Oh, Doug Jones. Yes, it was actually, that was later. He should have endorsed that wonderful House member whose name eludes me right
Was it
now.
Luther Strange was the other guy?
Luther Strange was the establishment candidate.
Okay.
And Mo Brooks was the one.
Okay, yeah.
And instead of endorsing the Trumpian candidate who had, basically Trump's policies, but I guess early in the primary, he had supported Cruz. And also Trump just did whatever McConnell wanted him to do so he could sit in bed, eat cheeseburgers and watch Fox News, I gather. But it wasn't just Jeff Sessions who was the best member of the administration. I would have put him at Homeland and not AG. But the Russia investigation wasn't his fault. It could have been anything. And the Russian investigation obviously turned out to be absolutely nothing. So if there was nothing, it could have been a Swaziland investigation, a China investigation. Who knows what they'd make up? That Russia was made up. So how about Steve Bannon? Steve Bannon joined the campaign the same time Kellyanne did. Admittedly, it was just 2 months before the election, but yet and still, Steve Bannon was very loyal to him. He not only fires him, but humiliates him on Twitter. Sloppy Steve, remember, he came up with a name for him.
Begged for his job back.
Begged for his job back. He fired and humiliated Corey Lewandowski. I don't understand. Roger Stone. I don't understand the ones other than Sessions that I've just named. That's a weird psychology where this jackass fires you, insults you, and you decide you're just going to keep sucking up to him. Is there another way to make money? Can you guys move on? You've seen how we treated you. Oh, Chris Kobach was, after Sessions, probably the most prominent Republican in the country to endorse Trump, to advise Trump. Very, very smart man. And Trump doesn't even endorse him when he ran for the United States Senate. He endorsed his opponent.
And he endorsed Mitt Romney, which he did not need to do. And somehow is surprised, I guess, that Mitt Romney is going to vote for impeachment, more than one time. Do you think that, do you have any doubt that he's going to run again for president 2024? And if so, do you think he's a lock on the nomination?
No, in fact, I'll make a bet with you if you think he is. I already have one stake bet on he won't be the nominee, and another stake bet he won't even be in the first primary. No, I don't think he has a chance. I think he will pretend to run in order to continue grifting his supporters, but he'll look at the polls and he doesn't want to be a big fat loser. So he's going to, maybe at the last minute, but he doesn't want his name on that first primary vote. I mean, I'm hoping he'll come out and endorse whomever the best candidate is so that he can claim credit for, I got this guy elected with my endorsement. But no, I don't think he'll be the nominee. He has absolutely no chance of winning the election. No, I mean, the best thing that could have happened to America, because what you were quoting from me before is true. When I wrote Adios America, things are so bad, and most people, live in their own nice little communities, and don't. It happens slowly. It's the frog in the boiling water. Republicans in California sure have noticed the effects of immigration, but by the time every state has the critical mass of immigrants to turn it far left blue, and poor and not as honest and not as individualistic and other things that America prides itself on, by the time every state turns, well, it's over. So anyway, I figured we had a 10% chance to save the country, and that was worth it. So I wrote the book, Adios America. And then suddenly Trump is saying everything. And the day he was elected, I thought, oh my gosh, it's gone to 90%. We have a 90% chance to save America. I was ecstatic. Now, after him just absolutely blowing his presidency in every possible way, I'm way below 10%. I mean, I'm an American, I'm a Christian, you still have hope, you still root for our side, and I certainly am. But I think things are looking pretty bad.
One of the things that you have, one of your great quotes is, and I believe this was in Adios America, and you said, I quote this all the time, "Attention Republicans, if the New York Times isn't calling you racist, you're losing." Can you unpack for people what you mean by that quote?
Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. I can't say this enough, and I say it at probably every dinner party I go to, Michael. I ought to just get a recording so I could, go out and have a cigarette or something. For some reason, Republicans, and particularly Republican donors, are just obsessed with getting the Black and Hispanic vote. One of the things that was fantastic about Trump's 2016 campaign, it was kind of stunning. It was the first time any presidential candidate had to appeal to white people for their vote. Now, here's the interesting fact about American politics. The only swing voters in the country are white voters. At least that has been true until now. I know we're all rooting for a slight uptick in the Hispanic vote, but it's basically about 70% Asians voting Democrats, about 70% Hispanics voting Democrat, about 90% Blacks voting Democrat. And what determines every election, Michael, is how white working class voters vote. They are the ones who you think to yourself, who's going back and forth between Obama and Trump? It's white people. It's white people. You will get, slight variations in what I just described, given the circumstances. But by and large, immigrants generally vote about 80% against Republicans. So that particular quote was, in fact, it was written, that entire chapter was written after a dinner party in Palm Beach with, I was the only non-billionaire by a long shot at the party. And it just drives you crazy. These are obviously smart people, but whatever it is they did to make all of this money, it isn't politics. I'm the dork at home reading Nexus all day, watching MSNBC, paying attention to what's been going on. When it comes to politicians, shut up and listen to me, billionaires. So anyway, as usual, they're droning on, and I think we could get a little more of the Black vote. And I, in my very polite way, blew up at them. and I'd turned in Adios America at that point. It was right around Christmas time. I think I turned it in the day before Christmas. I was a little behind my deadline. And I came home and in a rage wrote up a chapter that I titled, I wrote this chapter after realizing how stupid Republicans are. And I mentioned, what's the biggest presidential landslide in American history? Ronald Reagan in 1984. Do a Nexus search on how many times he was called a racist. He got less of the black vote. And back then, it really was just the black and white vote. There weren't enough Hispanics or Asians, I think, to even be counted in polls. And he got the smallest percentage of the black vote of any presidential candidate. So welcome it, Republicans. If you're not being called racist by the New York Times, you are losing.
Let me push back a little in this regard. Don't you think when candidates talk about or in some ways make even lip service to getting the black or Hispanic vote, this makes suburban white women a lot more comfortable with that campaign because they kind of are mollified and they're like, oh, this person's not dangerous. You know, they're not a demagogue. I'm going to vote for them. Like it's kind of a backdoor way to campaign for the white female vote.
I think there are better ways to do it. I mean, for one thing, I don't think there are as many. We may know more in our social circles, suburban white women, as there are a vast, enormous white working class.
Sure.
And the white working class women don't give a crap about that. And, you know, when I say if you're not being called racist by the New York Times, you're losing, I don't mean be racist. Reagan wasn't racist. I'm not racist. You're not racist, but you're going to be called racist. I think the Republicans' position should be, look, this is what we stand for. And by the way, if they really push the immigration issue, blacks won't vote for you, but they will agree with you. And you always have Republicans saying, and this is true, this has always been true, if you go by, you know, issue by issue, by and large, black voters actually agree with us on stuff like abortion, to a large extent, crime. They're the victims of crime. And definitely on immigration, it's immigrants coming in, driving their wages down more than yours or mine, more than most people's. There have been a bunch of studies how immigration really hurts black workers the most. So they're going to agree with you, but they probably will go off and still vote for the Democrats. But the position should just be, these are my positions. I would love your vote. I think you should vote for me. I'm not pandering to you.
Guys, I'm really happy to promote Fume, which is one of the best mechanisms out there to help you quit smoking and help you quit vaping. What is Fume? Fume is a natural inhaler designed for a better, safer way to quit cigarettes. There's no smoke. There's no vape. It's made out of wood, Canadian maple, and they use these cores infused with plant oils that are studied to help curb cravings. It helps you replace that hand-to-mouth motion that so many smokers are addicted to. That ritual is part of the addiction, and it makes it harder to quit cold turkey. All you got to do is go to breathefume.com, breathefum.com/malice, and use code malice. You get 10% off. This is a great way to get your health back in order. They were from Canada, and they've helped over 50,000 customers around the world. You owe it to yourself and to your family to find a replacement for smoking that will make it easy to stick to not wasting money on that awful, awful tobacco. Quit naturally with Fume and use Malice to save 10% at breathefume.com/malice. And you'll be thanking me, I promise. Hey guys, Segura offers the industry's most premium products, including highly sought after limited edition items, exclusive top shelf Segura samplers for brands such as Davidoff and Ashton. They have a large selection of high-end boutique products, nationally distributed, regular production favorites as well. You can connect with fellow cigar smokers in the lounge, along with staff experts, manufacturers, and more. It's a one-of-a-kind cigar-based community with a curated selection of industry-related content that includes reviews, pairings, beginner questions, and more. It's a place where cigar lovers can connect, shop boutique cigars, and share experiences. This is so cool. You have to check it out. Go to Segura.com. That's CIGORA.com. While you're there and help you relax, you get a free gift. When you spend $49 or more, use code WELCOME at checkout. You get a free Founders Box. This is an expertly curated sampler with a $45 value for free. CIGRA.com, Segura.com. You'll be thanking me. Let's get back to the show. One of the things I always point out is often when conservatives have a victory, they're not going to realize it because it's not like the New York Times will be like, you won this round, conservatives. They'll just stop talking about an issue and it'll go away. And one specific example that I want to hear your thoughts about is I remember very vividly in 2017 when it's like, oh my God, Muslim ban, this is completely un-American. The founding fathers wanted full immigration from Muslim nations. But when the pushback came from polling and, middle America, they just dropped that like a hot potato. They stopped talking about it. Linda Sarsour is on the back of a milk carton as we speak. Do you not think this was an example of conservatives having a win?
That's a great point. And particularly, it was a win in the Supreme Court. Do people even know that? I'm as MSNBC's most loyal viewer, I saw, law professor after law professor, New York Times, this is unconstitutional, what was called the Muslim ban. I know the law is very specific about allowing the president for any reason in the benefit of the United States to exclude any group of people from from our country. He could say no redheads. We've been having a rash of shootings by redheads. President expressly has legal authority to do that. So I remember noticing all these op-eds and law professors. Oh, and a guy from Reason magazine, very snarky about it, sarcastic. Well, maybe Trump should read the Constitution. I think it ended up being 9-0, saying that upholding the quote Muslim ban. It wasn't just, I say quote Muslim ban because I think they threw in North Korea or something so that it wasn't just Muslim. But it was a perfectly logical exclusion. The idea was, for people who don't remember, we had this attack on 9/11. And after that, thank you, George Bush, we brought in more Muslims after 9/11 than we did before 9/11. And lots of them went around committing yet more terrorist attacks, but here in our country. So it was a really stupid thing to do. And in certain countries, they're so backward, they don't have like a Syrian FBI. Don't worry, we've got their fingerprints on file. We have, here's our file on Muhammad. So there's nothing to check. They kept talking about, oh, we vet them. Yeah, we vet. How are you vetting them? There's nothing to vet them against. So the idea was for countries where it was impossible to vet who was coming in, we're going to put a little pause on it for a while. We got to get our own house in order.
And one of the other things is very often it's the children of the first generation immigrants who are the ones who are radicalized here. It's not that they're coming over radicalized. It's like, I think Omar Mateen being a good example. He's the guy who murdered all the people at Pulse. I think he was not an immigrant himself. It's just that somehow whatever happens in certain countries, that it's the kids who end up getting radicalized, but the parents are just like trying to have some kind of crappy job and make a better life for their children. One of the things I have seen, in my opinion, you change over the years is becoming less of an interventionist regarding foreign policy. I remember vividly a quote where I don't have the exact wording, but something to the effect of we should invade their countries, kill their leaders, and convert them to Christianity. Is that still your position, though?
Well, it was, that was my column written on the night of 9/11. And it's like Schrodinger's cat. There's some things I know now, not what you might think, that would make me say, no, we can never, ever go to war again. I think that was, I was against the first Iraq war, by the way. I was against the war in the Balkans. So it's not like I've gone from warmonger to peacenik, but 9/11 was different. Sure. And yeah, okay. They were camped out in Afghanistan. That's a bunch of goat herders. All they did was, Osama set up camp there. And I won't go through all of the arguments. My argument was never the weapons of mass destruction. I only cited the weapons of mass destruction to taunt the New York Times, who are so insistent that we do whatever the UN says, and we just need another UN resolution. Well, hey, he keeps violating the UN resolutions, New York Times. No, my reasons for, at the time, and in a decent American country, my arguments make sense. Then I'll tell you why I think they really don't anymore, which is unfortunate. Saddam, well, you have in the Middle East this odd situation where it's either the people are crazy and the leaders are fairly reasonable, or the leaders are crazy and the people are fairly pro-Western. So, you have, well, Iraq and Iran were great examples of, wait, the people are actually they can read, they have indoor plumbing. It's not like Afghanistan. So you just knock out the leader and we could have an Arab Israel. It doesn't have to be a perfectly functioning democracy, but you have this lunatic and he's sitting on a lot of oil, and he wanted a nuclear weapon. He had used chemical weapons before. So there were in short, there were a lot of reasons to take him out, none to keep him there. But Michael, I didn't say, and then let's hang out in Afghanistan and Iraq for 20 years and paint George Floyd murals, and teach the women about feminism, which is what our military is now. We no longer have a functioning military in an America with a functioning military and not just a gigantic welfare program. I think it was a good idea. And I think even to this day, Iraq is better now than it was. But now I think you just have to say, if there's another 9/11, oh, well, we don't have a military, because we don't.
So are you opposed to us invading and liberating Canada?
We could do that in an afternoon.
I'm curious as to, you said earlier you're not that optimistic of the future of this country. Let me ask you this follow-up question. Do you regard Joe Biden in the White House as a symbol of the establishment's strength or as its weakness? Let me give you the two arguments. The argument that strength is they took a weekend at Bernie situation and put a literal corpse with like a little string in the White House. And on the other hand, it could be a symbol of weakness in this kind of Habsburg dynasty, where by the end of it, they're also inbred. The guy's jaw is just hanging off and he can't even close his mouth and he's completely incontinent. So Biden can be read as both of those. Which is closer to your interpretation?
That's a very, very good analysis, Michael Malice. I think it's both. I think Joe Biden was absolutely the best candidate they could have picked. And he was almost chosen by the guys in the smoky room. Once he's gone, what do they have? I mean, it's sort of weird that this party that is the Black Party in America is everybody at the top, the leadership, Bernie Sanders and Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, Di-Fi, Biden, they're between 90 and dead. Once they're gone, we get into the squad and Ilhan Omar and little Pete Buttigieg. And their weirdness and hatefulness, I think, becomes more apparent to all Americans, which is why I still think you'll laugh, I think there's a pretty good chance that they're going to continue doing the weekend at Bernie's thing and run Joe Biden again.
Well, I think who's their plan B? It's not Kamala Harris.
Right.
Who couldn't even get Black people to vote for her in the Democratic Party. She didn't even make Iowa. It's not Buttigieg, who's like, I'm mayor of South Bend. I've traveled a lot. You've traveled a lot. I don't know anyone who's been to South Bend. No disrespect to people from South Bend. But in terms of like, if I have a job, I'm thinking of running for president. John Lindsay was the closest New York mayor to come for president. That was 72 or something like that, or 68. So if the New York mayor and the LA mayors can't do it, not even Indianapolis, you're dealing with South Bend. So, but I think their smart move, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts, is to run Patrick Bateman, by which I mean Gavin Newsom.
Oh, I think it would be a disaster, but I hope they listen to you. For them, I think it would be a disaster. I think it would be great for us.
You think Newsom's a weaker candidate than Biden?
Yes.
Okay, please tell me why.
Yes. For one thing, I don't mean to sound like Biden here, but he's not black. Okay, admittedly, Biden is not technically black either. But James Clyburn said, we're voting for Biden. And black people said, okay. But look, Biden had worked for Obama. Gavin Newsom I just think he is such a fruitcake. It's almost surprising to me that he can be elected in California, but in California, they just go in and vote for, they would vote for Bigfoot. They might vote for me if I had a D after.
You mean John Fetterman?
Yes. But Gavin Newsom, he is just too much. No, he should be a maitre d' at a fancy restaurant. That's what I think whenever I see him. He is just too fruity and way, way, way too white. Another white male?
Well, that's true, because Biden definitely does have that white ethnic faux blue collar union thing going for him far more than Newsom does.
Yeah. Yeah, and he worked for Obama, and also I think they look at him as, kind of the last generation. Okay, well, they'll have their last hurrah, but, why not Ilhan Omar? Why not AOC? Why not, what's his name, the guy running in Wisconsin against that senator I like and can't think of his name. Okay, so this is the problem when I can't chew Nicorette.
One of the things that conservatives are often very enraged by, I don't know if that's the right word, but disappointed by with the Republican Party, is that people campaign on conservative values and they get into office and they're basically voting like Mitt Romney or to the left. And I'm very curious to hear your thoughts, because I'm sure there's going to be probably an epic and Coulter rant coming about the candidacy of Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania.
Well, I do want Republicans to take the Senate. As my motto is, there are a lot of bad Republicans, but there are no good Democrats. And if the Democrats have both the House and the Senate, whoa, Katie, bar the door. Bad things happen when Democrats have the presidency, the House, and the Senate. So I'm pedal to the metal for every Republican running. And someone came up to me at a party last week and I realized, well, that's a good point. I haven't even thought about it. And asked me, do you actually support Dr. Oz or do you just hate Fetterman?
Yeah. I
was kind of torn. But no, I mean, there are I actually kind of do like Dr. Oz. He's a doctor. I think doctors are always great. They're almost all are great to have on our side. I think they're great to have in politics. They actually know something. I believe, at least, I think every doctor who's been in the U.S. Senate has been a Republican. Not surprisingly, he's invented all this stuff.
But the first lady's a doctor, so come on, let's be fair. Let's be fair. And she's got a nursing patient that she takes care of around the clock. So credit where due, Ms. Coulter.
Touche, Michael Malice. So there's a lot to be, and also if you've seen Fetterman on the campaign trail, he's very articulate. I suspect he'll vote better than, well, I shouldn't say this, but then Herschel Walker will, but I don't care. I want Herschel Walker to fill a seat and be a Republican. I would 100% vote for Herschel Walker. But no, I think Oz might turn out to be pretty good.
Okay. How hopeful are you, or what are your placing the odds at that the Republicans will take both houses come November?
Well, if you had asked me a few months ago, I was going to take, if somebody would give me odds, take a bet that we weren't going to pick up the Senate. I don't know. I guess I'm a little more hopeful now. No, probably this is boring to go through and I'll forget half the names, but we're looking good in Nevada. That Laxalt looks pretty good. I think we're looking good in Ohio with J.D. Vance. Now, Oz is only holding a seat, but I think he's looking good. I just can't understand this Pennsylvania replacing a Republican, so we're not picking up a seat.
Wait, can I interrupt you? Because there was a poll that just came out, and I just quoted and I said I need to leave the earth because they asked voters in Pennsylvania, how does John Fetterman having had a stroke affect your odds of voting for him? And 14% said it would make them more likely to vote for him. And I'm like, all right, that's a wrap, folks. I'm out of here. I couldn't even reverse engineer the logic there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. I think that's probably committed Democrats, probably government union members who are just throwing it at, because I've noticed a lot of times when you ask a question in these polls, they ask a question that probably most people don't agree with, but they know their team.
Right. Yeah.
For that, they will say, yes, that's me. And so that's probably just intense Democrats saying, screw you, pollster. Yeah, I'm more likely to vote for this guy, whom they were going to vote for anyway. But I mean, he's like a Michael Moore type.
Yes.
He's slovenly. He looks like those Canamites from the Twilight Zones, to serve man. You're seeing them, they're giants and they have that little goatee.
I heard they shaved the Chewbacca.
He is so pro-crime, pro-criminal, not just pro-crime. He's actually pro-criminal. He's a big fat liar. He didn't pay his taxes in the town where he was mayor and had to be sued. I just don't get, who is he? Just looking at him, the tattoos on his arm, he's so bedraggled and slovenly. He's Michael Moore. Is that Pennsylvania? They want this guy in the Senate. So that's only saving a seat, but still, I don't care what the polls show. I can't believe that Oz doesn't have a very good chance there. Herschel Walker, that's not picking one
There's
up.
New Hampshire, which looks like Hassan has it in the bag now.
Okay, that's at least not losing on, but we have
Arizona is a big question. Blake Masters versus Kelly.
Also, that would be a pickup, not losing one. Ohio, J.D. Vance, he's replacing a Republican, right?
Correct. And Wisconsin is the other one that's on it's Ron Johnson.
Yeah. He's the one that, because I didn't have a Nicorette, I couldn't think of his name. Okay, you got to tell me the name of the guy he's running against.
Something so, okay, I'll tell you.
So crazy. I read it and I think I'll never forget this. And then the next time I need to use his name, I can't remember.
Yeah, it's some very Mandela Barnes.
Thank you. Okay, he's a big BLM guy.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't see. I think Ron Johnson's fine, and I really like Ron Johnson. Although those are all saves, we need to flip. So I guess
Nevada's the one that's looking like the pickup, and in Arizona were the two that were most likely, is my understanding.
I love Blake Masters. I hate Mitch McConnell. I would think particularly viewers of your podcast, and I've met a lot of them, they tend to be very smart young men, at least the ones I've met.
Yes.
Probably a lot of babes are watching you too, Michael.
But no, there's zero chance of that.
A lot of smart young men, and it seems to me they should love Blake Masters. He has this gigantically high IQ, and anything that I love politicians like this. I can't even think of any particular examples, but anything that's like considered a semi-gaffe on the campaign trail, you just know it's because he's mildly Aspergery.
Right.
And I love politicians like that, but he's really, really smart. And I think a genuine patriot. I think he has, and I thought this all year, I think he has the toughest race of any of the Republicans, because the Democrat he's running against looks like a normal person. Right. We're used to running against Democrats who are just, hateful on sight. Maybe not quite as bad as Fetterman, but
Rosa DeLauro.
But bad, Chuck Schumer, you look at them, oh, come on. Mark Kelly, the astronaut, looks like a normal person. I wish Arizona voters would look at his voting record and see that, no, he's pretty much voting with Chuck Schumer. He's as far left as they come. He reminds me of that guy, my most hated U.S. Senator, John Tester from Montana. He's like a soybean farmer. He always has his hay coming out of his mouth and a buzz cut, and he talks like, Farmer Joe. And then, he's voting with the Young Spartacus League, I hate these fake, phony, fraud, genuine Americans. And that's totally Mark Kelly in Arizona. He has the advantage of incumbency. And instead of helping Blake Masters out when he got, a big head start, he got a lot of funding from the genius political operator and successful Silicon Valley entrepreneur, Peter Thiel. No, McConnell just pulls all the money from Blake Masters. I don't know if you've read how much he pulled. They had, and the worst thing is he did this to Chris Kobach, and McConnell did in Kansas too. The RNC or whatever it is, the senatorial committee, they buy time on TV and radio in advance. Now, buying it in advance, you get a discount. So it's like putting a deposit down. Yeah. They're willing to walk away from their deposit just to screw over Blake Masters, probably because he's smart and independent and wouldn't be a lapdog for Mitch McConnell.
Hey guys, hair loss may be in your genes, but doesn't have to be in your future. Did you know that 2 out of 3 guys may experience some form of hair loss by the time they're 35? That is a lot, right? Luckily, in most cases, it can be prevented and treated, and Keeps is here to help. Whether you're looking to stop hair loss, stimulate hair growth, or simply take better care of the hair you have, Keeps has you covered. Over 50 million men in the U.S. experience male pattern baldness. As the experts in hair loss prevention, Keeps is dedicated to helping men keep their hair growth on track, and all Keeps products are expertly formulated to support men with thinning hair. Once it starts, it doesn't stop or reverse on its own. The earlier you take action, the more hair you're likely to keep. Hence Keeps, right? Keeps clinically proven treatments are 90% effective at stopping hair loss, and 66% of men even experience regrowth. Keeps offers a convenient, affordable, and stress-free way to keep your hair via confidential, convenient virtual doctor consultations, medications delivered straight to your home every 3 months. You don't have to leave your house, like myself. When it comes to your hair, save more, spend less. If you're ready to take action and prevent hair loss, go to keeps.com/welcome to receive your first month of treatment for free. That's keeps.com/welcome to get your first month free. Keeps.com/welcome. Hey guys, Michael Malice here. What if you didn't have to pay healthcare premiums, but you could invest in Bitcoin instead? When health insurance companies invest your premiums, they're the ones reaping the rewards, not you. With Crowd Health, you put the money aside for health expenses in your own account and even hold part of it in Bitcoin. The best part is if Bitcoin goes up, you get the upside, not that big insurance company. And you'll be part of the Crowd Health community who are there to help if a big expense comes up. If you're against the government standing between you and your doctor, which I'm sure more than a few of us are, and you're still going to healthcare.gov for your insurance, then you are part of the problem, even more than Dave, who is, as we know, the worst. Here's why healthcare bills are so high. The buyers of healthcare and the sellers of healthcare want costs to rise. Obamacare limits the amount of profit they make. So on $1,000 of monthly premiums, they can make $150. So they can only increase their profits by raising your price. Here's how Crowd Health works. You pay one low monthly total, less than $200 most of the time, to fund an account that's yours. You can hold up to 75% of it in Bitcoin if you want. You choose what doctor you want. And if you have a big bill, Crowd Health will crowdfund that bill for you so you can pay the doctor or hospital quickly. You have a personal care advocate who takes care of your questions. Kiss big call centers goodbye. Just schedule a call with your care advocate. You talk to the same person every day. Stop supporting the broken healthcare system with your hard-earned dollars. Go to joincrowdhealth.com/welcome now and experience freedom from health insurance by utilizing Bitcoin. Right now, you get your first 6 months for just $99 a month. That's almost 50% off the normal price and a lot less than a high deductible healthcare plan. Just go to crowdhealth.com/welcome to sign up. That's crowdhealth.com/welcome. Crowd Health is not health insurance. It's a totally different way of paying for healthcare. Terms and conditions may apply. Let's get back to the show. You are, a proud American. I think your family goes back many, many years in this country. From that perspective, as a conservative, how did it feel for you to see Donald Trump in the Oval Office?
I remember. It's funny, I hadn't thought about this. When they first introduced him, it wasn't technically the State of the Union, I guess, because it was after he was sworn in, but his first address to Congress. And I was standing in front of the TV watching I always like the ceremony, even though the speeches are usually really boring. And, they do that thing where the clerk of the Senate or whatever his title is yells out, "Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States." And I just started laughing uncontrollably. It's Donald fucking Trump, the President of the United States. It's just madness.
Blake often quotes my quote without attribution, but it's okay, Mr. Masters, that conservatism is progressivism driving the speed limit. Do you agree with that quote? And if not, what does conservatism actually mean to you?
That's a really good quote. I didn't know about it, and good for Blake Masters.
Well, good for me. I thought of it. He's just stealing my line.
Oh, I'm saying good for him for
yeah,
stealing from you. I think I was going to say, imitation, sincerest form of flattery. At least he's stealing from the best, Michael. I'm proud of the little guy. No, that is well put, and I will illustrate what I mean by that, or why I agree with that. And that is, in 2016, throughout the campaign, I realized that I'm every time I go out in New York, I'm meeting Bernie Sanders voters and persuading them to vote for Trump, which wasn't that hard, because point by point, I mean, compared to Hillary, Bernie Sanders cares about Americans. He's not a race-based guy. He's more of a commie in the old sense of class-based. So he cares. He seemed to. I mean, he's sort of changed now that he's become more of a Democrat. I liked him more when he was a socialist. He seemed to care about the working class. He absolutely opposed illegal immigration because of what it does to the working class in America. Oh, everybody forgets that quote from Bernie Sanders. And then he checked back in with, headquarters at the DNC. No, we're for mass immigration, driving down the working class's wages. Bringing manufacturing home, tariffs, no more wars. Bernie Sanders and Trump's positions, of all the candidates running for president in 2016, those two had the closest positions.
But then what does conservatism mean to you, though?
Well, he was crazy on economics.
No, I mean, you and Coulter, like, what does the term conservatism mean? You say you're conservative, that people often have problems defining what they mean by that term, other than some kind of vague opposition to leftism.
Well, I guess I mostly want to, it's so much at the top of my mind. There might be other things I'd care about, but preserving the country our founders bequeathed to us. And we are so far from that. That isn't just a BS line. I mean, the freedom of speech, freedom of association, individuality, the right to bear arms. That's the country our founders created for us. And in polls, you can see the longer people have been here, the more they understand it. We are very unusual in the world with the amount of freedom we have. So basically, any immigrant we bring in an immigrant from Great Britain, by definition, we're becoming less free. Or at least we have someone who will be less interested in freedom. Americans, it's part of our genes to believe in freedom and individuality and individual rights. And wow, the people we're bringing in it's not that they even don't believe it, they don't understand it. And I find it really bossy and offensive. I mean, if I moved to somebody else's country, I wouldn't, go in and it's like going to a dinner party at somebody's house. Okay, I'm not wild about the wainscoting, and wallpaper has to go. I'll be taking the silverware here. Also, could you bring your kids to the dining room? Because I didn't care for the names. I'm going to rename them.
Yeah.
No, you listen and learn. And yes, we can assimilate people, but we're not trying to assimilate them. We're embarrassed about assimilating. Liberals that talk about assimilation being a hate crime. So, I mean, just the most basic elements of what this country was, the way our Constitution was written, and And that does have a lot to do with the people. It is kind of a weird thing to imagine. This something you often hear that I object very strongly to. America is an idea. It's not anybody can adopt it. Well, to an extent, but suppose we just removed everyone from this country in, about the time Teddy Kennedy started to do it, 1965, and, moved all of Central Africa in. Would it be the same country, Michael?
No, it wouldn't. Or even Central Europe or Central Asia or South America.
Oh, yeah. I'm writing another column on tonight. It goes out tomorrow on DeSantis and Martha's Vineyard. So I've been looking up a lot of my favorite asylum cases, and oh my gosh, a lot of them come from Africa, Central Africa. Yes, the Middle East. The most dishonest countries in the world, and they're the ones, our immigration officers. Yes, tell me about that gang rape again.
I'm pretty sure I know your answer, but what are your thoughts about this bubbling under issue regarding national divorce? The idea that the America has two cultures that are largely irreconcilable, and maybe it'll be hard to figure out who gets what, but that there's really no way going forward other than some kind of peaceful separation.
Well, it always makes me laugh because on one hand, one of my longest friends 20 years ago started designing the new country. It's kind of a funny looking country, a lot of non-contiguous states. And, we'd always joke about it for years, but so I've been working on this for a while, but in actuality, no, I don't think it can be done. Probably because I've been working on this so long. For one thing, most states look at Pennsylvania.
Right.
The line is take out Philadelphia and Pittsburgh, and it's Alabama.
Yeah.
Most states are like that, where the cities or one small area is very, very left wing, and the rest of the state is not. I can't imagine how we'd go about it. And the third reason, if this is my third reason, that I sort of object to talking about it is I've noticed this in some of the comments on my Substack page, and I do read the comments and respond. Some of them are really good, but it's really a form of defeatism and just throwing up your hands and saying nothing can be done to make arguments like, well, we've got to split the country up. Or someone I was responding, I think gently, to last night was, no president is going to make a difference. This has to come from the ground up. And I mean, what are you talking about? Or we need another American Revolution. It's anger. I understand throwing a tantrum. I'm kind of angry too, but be smart conservatives. There are things we can win. There are ways we can win. And especially right now. And I mean, I know we started this podcast with me saying, country's finished, there's no hope. But I'm, at least short term, I'm really optimistic because of what we were talking about. We have some really fantastic, and one in particular, likely presidential candidates that, I mean, if you're a human, and especially an American and a Christian, of course you have hope and you care about this. And I keep reading up on DeSantis and my others, whom I'm between us, I'm sort of considering as my vice presidential choices, Glenn Youngkin in Virginia and Greg Gianforte of Montana. They're really fantastic. And yes, it does make a difference who the president is.
Can we talk about Gianforte? Because when he ran for Congress, there was a journalist who tweeted
the Substack on this. Yeah. Did you see it on Twitter?
I did not. Greg Gianforte just body slammed me and broke my glasses. And then when the journalist went around trying to find people who this would make them not vote for him, they couldn't find a single person who was like, yeah, I'm still voting for the guy. I don't care that he body slammed a reporter. And now he's the governor, I believe.
That night, and he was on every program whining about how his glasses were broken. MSNBC was very sad the next day when, woohoo, Gianforte won. But as I said in my podcast, and I just tweeted out this clip, Michael Malice, I'm I know a lot of liberal journalists, particularly in New York, and I kept bringing it up with them. Every single one of them said, wait, Ben Jacobs, The Guardian? Oh, he's a total asshole. He deserved it.
I've lost my train of thought. And we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
I did not know your quote, progressivism or conservatism is progressivism going the speed limit, at least the way I interpret it. Did I interpret it roughly correctly?
Yes, you did absolutely correctly. It's like, here's another example of that, which would be if the Republicans said, we're going to pass the 2020 budget as next year's budget, they we regard as lunatics, right? Like if they said, let's go back to Obama's budgets, everyone would be like, oh my God, these guys are nuts.
If they went back to Obama's position on gay marriage.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Homophobes.
Yeah. So let me ask again, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
Oh, I liked it all. You're very good. And I'm really happy to be here. Oh, getting the camera to work. That was, that was a major one. I always find it fun to talk about Adios America. Oh, I'll leave you with this. I don't know if I'm allowed to say that since you're the one conducting the interview. Maybe we have another 20 minutes for all I know. But as for this will be just sum it all up on Trump and how much I loved his campaign and how much I hated everything after he won the election. I've thought many times that the best thing that could have happened to conservatism and for this country would be if on election night 2016, when the bar goes from Hillary 90% to bam, Trump winning. If when Trump came out and his family is there and all the people who helped get him there were excluded from the room, Corey Lewandowski, and woohoo, it's 2 a.m., Trump won. If he had given his little speech and had a heart attack and died, because Mike Pence would have been afraid to betray Trump's voters. All we needed was that campaign, which is why I'd write In Trump We Trust Again. We needed that campaign to show the Republican Party, even this jackass can win if he runs on popular ideas. Think of what you guys could do. Think of what you could do. You know English grammar. You weren't you haven't gone bankrupt. Your apartments aren't solid gold. Think of what you could do running on popular issues, Republicans. We needed his campaign to show that.
And you are welcome.
Hey guys, Jay Cutler. Started a new podcast called Uncut with Jay Cutler. Most of you know me from the NFL, some of you have seen me on Instagram, and some of you know me from the reality TV world. Each week I'm taking you along with me as we discuss football, trending topics, and whatever's going on in my life each week. I'm bringing along people that are special in my life, former teammates, friends, and some new people that I like and respect. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Podcasting? I think I'm doing this right. Can't wait to get started with you. Go subscribe now. Uncut with Jay Cutler, Apple Podcasts, Podcast One, and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.